This episode is brought to you by Smoky Castle Coffee, Canada's first wood-fire coffee roastery, specializing in fair trade and organic varieties and roasted fresh every week. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Smoky Castle Coffee. My guest today is Dan Ponich, engineer and producer out of Park Sound Studio and member of the folk rock group Echo Nebraska. In 2017, Dan and co-owner Andy opened Park Sound's doors to Vancouver talent like Dead Zones and Hello Sun. This is my conversation with Dan.
Hosecast. This is Hosecast.
Where did you go?
I went to Harborside Institute of Technology in North Van. So after I finished school, I got a call from my friend Andy Schichter. And I had known Andy from years ago because when I was in a rock band, he produced our records. And so that's how I originally met Andy, was like, this friend and her and I were in a band called Rubakava, and we were looking for a producer for our record, so we went on Craigslist and randomly found Andy. And this was probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh.
And then we met up with him, and we got on right away. And we did 2 records with him, and that's originally how I met him. So he had already been like producing and engineering for a while. And then, and so then our band broke up, Rubakava broke up, and then I didn't hear from Andy for a long time. And then right as soon as I was finishing school, and that was like April 2016, Andy called me like randomly, and I got really excited because I was like hearing from Andy. You know, he's big
time Andy, as you call him.
I'm a big Andy fan, and so then I was like, oh, I wonder what Andy wants. And so it turns out that they wanted me to fill in on bass, and they were going on this tour, and so he knew that I was finishing school. And he's like, can you come on tour? So anyway, long story short-ish, I joined this band, Echo Nebraska, and then we did that tour, and then at the end of 2016, at the end of the summer of 2016, we were on tour, and Andy and I were trapped in a van together, driving for hours, and we bonded over this podcast called Recording Lounge.
I think I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Who's is there like 5 or 6 main dudes?
It's one dude. His name's Kendall Osborne. Okay. I think he's out of like Oklahoma or something. Right. And so we started listening to this thing, and we kind of bonded over it. And then out of like spending a lot of time together, we just started like bouncing ideas off each other. And we were both really tired of working from home. Like, because we would produce and record artists in studios, but then we do like a lot of the mixing and all the post work at home.
So you were already doing recording at that point?
Yeah. I started working like a few months into school. And
where? Where does a student get a job at a studio?
I was I was just freelancing.
Oh, you're just like making shit off a laptop kind of thing?
No. Like at this school, they would let us, like they were really good to us, and they would let us use the school studio.
Were you making any money at that point?
I was making money.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. They're an amazing school and very like supportive, and they pushed us to not sell ourselves short and to charge for our time or whatever, right? Which I had a hard time, like I still have a hard time doing that. Right. It's like hard to put a price on yourself. And it wasn't until I had this like conversation with my favorite tattoo artist, Phil Kwan, and I had this big conversation with him about how to like put a price on your craft or whatever, right? Like how to put a price on the work that you're doing if you're a freelancer, because it's kind of an awkward thing, right? Like with money and
especially when it comes to art, which is something that's so like it has to be so free form and directly from somebody's heart. And then once you start talking business, it just makes things weird instantly.
It does,
but
yeah.
it's so necessary.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with this dude I know a couple of years ago, and I was having a really hard time like selling my shit because I just felt like I just wanted people to hear it. I wanted to give it away for free. But he kind of gave me this piece of advice that it stuck with me, which was like, if you give away your tickets to your show for free or your new demo for free, then you're like valuing your music at nothing.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, that always stuck with me. It was like, because you do deserve money.
Totally.
Maybe not a lot at first, but
I think it's like the principle, though, right? It doesn't matter like what it is. It's the principle that like you put all this work into it, and you deserve to get like whether it's $1 or $500.
And God knows all that money goes right back into it like immediately anyway.
Yeah. So
was school worth it for you then?
Yeah, 100%. But I actually have gotten asked this a couple times. It was definitely worth it, but like I made it worth it. Like there's like a plethora of people that go through audio engineering school and that I saw firsthand go through Harborside that just like dicked around and like were there because mommy and daddy put them there or whatever, right? But if you go and you work your ass off, which I did, then I was rewarded for doing that. And they took notice in that, right? That I just worked really hard and didn't have a life for 9 months, and then they rewarded me with opportunities. So yes, it was, and they continue to support me, right? Like we've started now? Like we're doing like I'm getting like interns from them, and they'll like come and work with me and stuff, and they're always like helping me out. When we were getting started up, like they helped us they let us like buy equipment through them, so we get it at cost.
Oh wow!
So they're
where is this school?
It's in North Van on like Felon Marine-ish area.
I'm curious as to why people choose Vancouver. Did you grow up here?
No.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Kelowna.
Oh, right, of course. As did I, on the other side of the bridge.
Yes.
Where all the stoners lived. I mean, I guess you guys were all probably the same.
No, we were doing that too.
So, like, what is it about Vancouver that would be a place you'd want to invest in and set up a studio? Like, why here? Why not Montreal or Toronto?
Yeah, that's something that when I was in school and finishing up, I was like planning on moving to Toronto. Like, I wasn't planning on staying here because of like the cost of living and everything else. Like everything that everybody bitches about, right? About living here and how expensive it is and how you'll never own a house.
Right.
And so I talked to like my teachers or profs or whatever, and like was kind of telling them my plan, and they just kind of gave my head a shake a bit, just saying that like I haven't made a huge network here, but whatever I have, I'd be throwing it away like instantly. So like I'd only been going to school for 9 months. And then I would move away and start from scratch, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I had already been working from like 3 months into school, and I had like started to build like a client base or whatever, or lack of a better. And so I don't know. I'm not somebody that's like afraid of taking chances, but it did seem, so that's not what happened, but like they did make some good points about, you have such little here, but you're already working. And then if you move to a new city, you're going to have absolutely nothing and be trying, and not be working. Not that it can't be done, but I just already had a foundation.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I already had a foundation. So I don't like what brought me here originally. I think it was just like, because I think you would agree with me too. It's just like, as somebody growing up in Kelowna who's like in arts or anything that doesn't have to do with blue collar or partying or whatever. It's just kind of the next logical
the obvious
step.
move.
Yeah, it's the obvious move.
Pretty much for any industry.
Yeah, because like now there's so many people here you run into or whatever from Kelowna, or it's so incestuous, like with people from Kelowna, and even our little, the musicians we know and stuff, like everybody is from Kelowna, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that like most of the musicians I run into are from Kelowna. And I'm not so sure that there is really, I hate to use the word a scene because it's kind of a ugly word, but sometimes it feels like there's really no vibe musically here. Do you ever get that, or do you have more optimism for it?
My opinion of this like scene or whatever has been like, it seems that when I've been to other cities like Toronto or whatever, it seems like it's more like people want to help each other out more. It's more community driven.
Right. Here
it seems more like nobody's helping each other out. Like I feel like if or going to shows or
right.
like I feel like it's a very sleepy town, like trying to get people out, and everybody's just kind of looking out for themselves. But I feel like if more people helped each other out and supported each other, then everybody would get further ahead. And I've thought about this before, and I think that's what this city is lacking, is just like more of an actual like community, and not just saying like I've made a Facebook group and we're making a Facebook community. I mean like actually doing and like supporting each other, right?
So I hate to like, I feel like I'm probably going to come off as a dick. I think I might just be a dick, so maybe it'll just evolve into that as the podcast goes along. But one of the things I feel like when it comes to the community and the come out to shows and like people don't support the shows, I think it's like largely the fault of just the amount of bands there are playing bad shows. Where I'm not saying that I'm better or that they shouldn't be, but there's a lot of really bad music that gets made.
Yeah.
That's just like because at this point anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Whether or not it sounds any good. But like when someone offers me to come come see their show and listen to their EP, oftentimes now I just like, I don't even bother. Like, are you proactive when it comes to people giving you their demos? Do you still like have some sort of vigor for the community and listening to demos and seeing shows? Is that you?
Lately, a lot more. Yeah, in the past month, for sure. Like I've been going to a lot of shows just to go, just to see what's out there. There is like, there is a lot of garbage out there for sure. Again, also not trying to sound like a dick, but I think that's kind of one of the arguments about like how, people have brought up like now like the internet is here, and so it's so easy to release your music or whatever.
What is with that argument?
I know, bullshit. But I think it's bullshit too, because then like how many hours of crap do you have to weed through to find something decent, right? I feel, I don't know if it was easier, I don't know if that's the right word, but I feel like in the 90s or something, if you were good or at least like somewhat decent, you were making a record because like you could. Yeah. Or not because you could, but because you deserve to, maybe? Yeah,
and like you have a great hit or whatever, and you get the attention of Much Music or something. I don't know what the equivalent would be in the States. Do they have Much Music in the States? I guess MTV.
I guess it's MTV.
But like for Canadians, like Much Music was a pretty attainable goal, I feel like. Like, because there's all these different programs on it, and everybody watched that shit. Like, were you a Much Music kid growing up? I used to watch that shit religiously. Yeah. And like The Wedge, do you remember The Wedge? They would have all these weird like indie bands, and like I feel like late 90s, early 2000s, that's really all you needed to do to start like to get to break in Canada, to have some sort of a explosion of people knowing who you are. And now it's like people say it's easy. I don't believe that at all.
No, I also disagree with that. Like, and I kind of like rustles my jimmies when people bring that up, because they're like, oh, but now it's so easy to get your music out there. And we're like, no, it's not. It's like it's so saturated. And it's so much more difficult, I think, to get noticed, because like you just said about people coming up to you and offering you demos, like how many thousands of people have, like millions of people have Bandcamp or whatever, and they're going to be like, listen to my Bandcamp page. And I'm like, you
listen to it, it's like a 2-chord song with a bunch of echo on the guitars and some lyrics that don't rhyme, and you're just like, well, this is why people don't come to shows. Like, I don't want to hear this either. And like, I always felt weird asking people to come to my shows, because it's like, I don't really go to shows. I don't go and see a band I've never heard of play an album that isn't out. Yeah. And I feel like maybe there's a lower standard. I don't know how it was back in the day, but now it's like there's the standard for a show, it seems so low, because whenever I feel like I'm just going to keep sounding like a dick, so fuck it. I am a dick. Whenever my band would put on a show, we would like rent fog machines and lights, and we'd make sure the album was heard on the radio and stuff. People heard it before we played. Like, we put a lot of effort and time into just like, I mean, you're paying your money to see a show. It can't just be 4 dudes like cracking around on their guitars and playing stuff you've never heard. I just feel like a lot of times when I get invited to indie bands shows, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a bummer. It's like,
it is. Yeah.
It's like, this isn't really a show. You guys are rehearsing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see this.
Yeah. But, no, like I said, like I've been going out more and more over the past couple months, and I didn't for a long time. Like I was just kind of like working a lot, and now I want to go out and network more and meet new bands and stuff. And so I've been doing that, and there are some there's some cool stuff out there. So I'd say like maybe like out of 3 shows, like 1 is really cool.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Not bad.
It is pretty good.
That Guilt & Co. venue is awesome. I think that's my favorite venue in the city.
Yeah, totally awesome.
Anybody listening who wants to see a show in Vancouver, go to Guilt & Co.
Yeah.
Underneath the Chill Winston. I was there last night, and I think they have bands every night.
Do they?
I think so, because every time I've like wandered in there's been some sort of jazz or funk band, and it turns out that those musicians really, really put the time in.
Yeah.
Like when you go see a jazz, like I was never really into jazz growing up, even though I played it in school. It just seemed so boring and academic to me, kind of. And now I'm like starting to have this whole new appreciation where like these people are working really hard. They're working harder than most rock musicians.
Totally.
And getting a lot less like recognition for it. And it's legit, man. The shows are like entertaining and they're atmospheric and they have a groove and like a projection. I don't know.
No, totally. I think something I always remember is like I think Noel Gallagher said that like jazz is the only genre of music where the artists are having more fun than the audience.
Oh, that's totally a good point.
I mean, but no, I mean I totally understand what you're saying. Like I think I
love Noel Gallagher, such a dink.
I know he's a dink, but I'm like so immersed in like the rock world that it's cool to see, you know, when you go out to that stuff. Now I really appreciate it because growing up I'd be like, no, I only listen to rock and roll, blah blah blah. But now when I see other stuff, I feel like I appreciate it more.
So does Park Sound have like a genre or like a sound?
I think I can't say it's like a specific sound, but I think as far as like what we like to do, I know Andy's like heart is more into I know he's like a big folk fan, like folk rock. I know he loves stuff like Death Cab but also like Fleet Foxes and stuff like that. And I would say that I'm more like my heart is more into rock and roll, like more into heavier.
What is rock and roll, Dan?
What is rock and roll?
Yeah, what do you mean when you say that? Because like I sort of picture both of you guys as kind of folk dudes.
I love everything from like 90s hip hop to like folk and stuff like that. But I think what really like resonates with me is stuff like Queens of the Stone Age or this awesome band that I just finished recording, the Dead Zones.
Yeah, I always hear the Dead Zones come up. Queens of the Stone Age, by the way, awesome pull. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I keep hearing this band. Like, are they in that sort of a style?
Yes.
Kind of like post stoner rock.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for those guys because I don't know if you would agree with me, but like, do you think that rock is very like prevalent right now?
Not
like,
at
what
all.
would you say is like big right now?
What's like the main genre that everyone listens to? I think it would be that like perverted EDM thing that like DJ Khaled is in charge of.
Yeah.
Like it's like this kind of like parody of dance music.
Yeah.
A shortened, like diluted version of what the ravers have been making for a long time.
Exactly. So I really like the Dead Zones because they like are true to who they are, and they've like never changed or adapted to like what's going on. And they're not the only ones, but I'm just saying like this is why I like respect them so much, is that they've never like changed or adapted to what's going on around them. They've always been like, this is who we are, this is the kind of music we like you can tell they're playing the music that they love. I think that is what like true music or like art should be, is that like you should be doing what resonates with you, like in your heart or whatever, and not conform to what's going on around you like that. But I also don't disrespect like making money in the music industry.
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm not like a DJ Khaled fan by any means, but and maybe that's a bad example, but you know how you see bands who sounded one way 10 years ago and then they evolve into something else, and you know, whether or not that's you like it anymore. I guess I'm contradicting myself, but I also feel like it's important to adapt, you know, because like
if it's true, if it's honest.
Yeah, if it's honest, right? Like, are Queens of the Stone Age making the same songs that they did in the late 90s?
Certainly not.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of their new album?
I listened to it once. I will listen to it again actually this weekend, but have you listened to it?
Yeah, I've powered through it a few times.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You had to
it's
power through
difficult for me. And like, I don't want to go on mic and record myself talking about how like one of my favorite bands is not my favorite anymore. But I don't know how much of it is adaptation and how much of it is just them being dads.
Well, they hired that Mark Ronson guy though, right?
See, and I love Mark Ronson. Like, I think he only has 2 records.
Yeah.
And they're like incredible. Like,
Yeah.
front to back, like,
Yeah.
pretty legendary shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, Uptown Funk is like, God damn, that's going to go down in history.
It is. It's a huge song.
I don't think he really belonged on a Queen's record. But I don't think he wrecked it. Like, I don't think it was his doing. And I don't think it's wrecked. It's got its own vibe or whatever. But I think they adapted. I think they kind of, maybe they didn't change on purpose, but I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about Queens of the Stone Age and not get, like, nostalgic and kind of.
No, I just think, like, okay, like, it's not, like, for me, like, Era Vulgaris is, like, so defining. Like, I just think that record is, like, flawless. And then I'm always, like, it's like, you know, somebody smoking crack for the first time and always searching for that chasing the dragon.
Yes.
I just feel like that's not going to happen again.
I don't think so either. And they are one of those bands where I remember where I was when I first heard a lot of the songs.
Totally.
Are you that way too? Like,
totally.
I remember, do you know the song Run Pig Run?
Yes.
I remember sitting in my mom's car and she was like getting insurance or something inside somewhere, and I put it on for the first time and I just was like, what the fuck? It's like so different.
Yeah.
And now I just feel like maybe they're trying to do that.
Where before it came more naturally.
Yeah. Before it was just like cutting edge, and now it's like, oh, how can we do another Run Pig Run?
It is so different though. That record, Era Vulgaris, that's such a good way to describe it. It's just like, it is rock, but I just like, I can't, it is hard to describe. Like, the sound is like so obscure sometimes, but it just works.
And it just goes places you never expect. And almost like, the thing I loved about old Queens is that they almost put like a bad taste in my mouth when I first would hear each song, where you're kind of like, ugh, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And then by the third listen, you're just like, can't get enough of that fucking weird transition they did or whatever.
I remember watching like Sick 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 when it came out on Much Music.
Bizarre.
Yeah, and at first I was like, I just could not. I didn't get it. Like, I didn't get the melody. I didn't get like
right,
because the guitar
it bugs
is
you.
like
it's not landing where it should.
Yeah, but then after a while you're like, man, that's what makes it so cool.
And then you listen to interviews and stuff with Josh Homme, and it turns out like it was a conscious decision of his to not land on the root note in that riff.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he have you ever seen that video where he plays the
guitar,
the Josh Homme scale?
Yeah,
and he kind of shows, he's like, yeah, I omitted these 3 notes, and then you start doing it and you're like, that's the fucking every solo he's ever done is just because he doesn't play these 3 notes. I don't feel that anymore. Now I feel like
he's playing that root note.
He's playing. That's exactly right. Yeah. Listen to the first song of the new album, and you'll hear exactly what I mean.
Yeah,
it's the root note just over and over.
Yeah.
So, like, you guys are. What's the mixing board you have in the studio?
It's just like a controller. Like, it's literally just like a big mouse. Like,
right.
It's just like the C. I don't know.
I noticed you had a Neve board fund jar on top of the
Neve
fridge.
Fund? Yeah, that's for all our empties from our Sneaky Weasel endorsement.
Oh, that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
a couple questions here. So, how important is it to you to record analog?
I think it is important. And I'm trying to. Andy, my studio partner, would attest to this, in that I'm like a gear pig of the partnership. I'm the one that's like, I have like a huge Craigslist fetish, and like I'm always like searching for the deal. You know, I'm like a hoarder, and so yeah, I just find myself, even if I can't even afford it, I'm like, oh my god, like, you know, we can't pass up this deal or whatever. So I'm like a fan of analog gear. I do think it's important. I think it's important, like, not to lose the art of that. Like,
is that all it is? Is it just an art, or is there an actual sound?
At this point, and I wouldn't hold it to myself to be experienced enough to make this call, but I've heard from enough, like, top tier engineers and mixers that at this point it's like equivalent to the digital realm. Like, the things that they're modeling after analog gear, it sounds the same.
There's like no visible difference.
Yeah, because there's guys like Andrew Sheps, who's like world renowned, and he has now switched to he doesn't do any analog, and he does like the top, you know, like Adele, anything like huge.
I would argue that those are clearly digital sounding.
Yeah.
They don't even remotely strike me as something that was recorded through like an actual setup.
Right. Well, I don't know how it was recorded, but how it was mixed is that he's using he's just using his computer. He like literally switched to a MacBook Pro, which also goes to show that you don't need...
Those songs are being produced on a MacBook?
Yeah, they're being mixed on a MacBook.
Shit.
So it goes to show that you don't need this $1 million Neve console to mix these things anymore, which is for better or for worse.
Do you want a $1 million Neve console?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and you'd use that over a MacBook?
Well, I think that's what comes back to the art of it, is I don't think, even though it might sound as good or whatever, like, I don't think that we should lose like the tactile engineering aspect of it. Like, I like, and I think Andy agrees, like, I love having my hands on knobs. You know what I mean?
I'm with you.
Yeah,
and like, I think anyone who's produced music on a program like Ableton will understand the fact that like drawing out MIDI notes sounds a certain way. You can't draw feeling. Exactly. Yeah. Like, and as soon as you have any sort of controller and you start moving the knob with your own sense, your own intuition, you can hear it immediately. It's like, it's impossible to recreate that. Which is great why you brought up the board that we have in the studio, because that is like a huge thing of why we have it, I think, is that when you're automating volume or aspects of feel or dynamics, like it makes a difference to have a personal touch rather than drawing it in with a mouse. Like, if you are personally affecting the way the song is mixed or the dynamics are increased, I think it shows. You can hear your hand in the song. You can much. Totally. So it's funny because we're talking about like these Neve boards being sort of the old days and stuff, whereas like someone from the previous generation might think that cutting straight to tape would be the art. Right. The art comes from using a razor. And do you have any experience with that? No. Me neither. When I was in Chicago watching Steve Albini do that, it was... Were you watching like Cut It? Yeah, it was insane. That's intense. It was insane. It was like the same way I would use a computer, if not faster. Yeah. It was weird. And to him, it's not, there's no art to it. It's like, it's just a job. He's just, yeah. It's like cutting drywall or something. He just matches it in. But it's actually kind of amazing. There's one story that I've told a few times, which is we recorded a song, and then afterward we're kind of listening. We're like, you know what? I missed that breath that I was taking at the beginning of the song. It kind of added to it. And then Steve Albini was like, yeah, that was a cool sound. And then he starts digging through the garbage underneath the fucking what are those things called with the actual tape playing on it? It's just a reel. Yeah, yeah. And he starts digging through the garbage and just like finds this little piece and tapes it back on, and it's like breath. Sounds perfect, and it's like, it's sweet. And I have the actual master tapes, and it's kind of a cool thing. And his like argument for it is that in the digital world, nothing will last. It can't really last any longer than computers do. So like, as soon as the internet goes away, half of the fucking music that's ever been made is gone as well.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't, I mean, obviously tape distorts and deteriorates, but it's permanent.
Yeah, it's a physical thing, right?
And you can find it. Like, they're still finding old tapes from Jimi Hendrix and shit that just like appear, and then there's totally an art.
Yeah, so that goes back to I think the hands-on thing, right? Is like, it's cool recording music and having it come through and you adjusting, the compression or EQ or whatever. So I guess yes is my answer to your question about analog gear. I'm a believer.
Because I noticed that board isn't really probably what you would want in the end in the studio. I would imagine you want a giant.
Probably. I think
you?
anybody, yeah. I'd say like anybody does, right? Just having more surface
options.
area.
But I wonder if it's even necessary, because it seems to sound the same.
I don't know. I mean, Andrew Sheps is doing it on a MacBook, so... Yeah.
It's kind of disturbing. I was listening to Mark Maron talk to Lorde.
Oh, I haven't heard that one yet.
It's a pretty good interview, I guess. One of the things she says is that, like, that Royals song that they kind of like broke her out. I guess they recorded it on like a stolen Ableton through like a shitty laptop or whatever, which is like half inspiring and half kind of like, well, the days of bands getting together and working hard and sweating and writing, it's kind of gone. Because it's, I mean, what's the point? Someone was asking me today, I was talking to somebody about this podcast project, and they were kind of like, yeah, you playing live shows still? And I was like, I don't know, not really. I've sort of just been studio and podcast and recording and writing and different projects, and I don't even really feel a huge pull to play live. No? It's just been so long since I've played a show that was like memorable.
Yeah.
For that reason of like just the oversaturation of the market seems to affect the amount of people that give a fuck.
Yeah. But so then what's the alternative?
I think just producing things.
Yeah.
For free.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk shit about going to studios and recording music, because that's what you do and that's what I do and I love it. I want to keep doing it, but it's sometimes it feels like there's just such diminishing returns from it.
Yeah.
And playing shows. Every once in a while I'll see like a Snapchat of a band playing and I almost feel embarrassed for them, like because it's such like a grandiose, like everyone's together to watch this thing go down. But I know what's going on stage. There's a bunch of broke motherfuckers working at Best Buy, like just hoping that people will come and buy their shirt. There's something sad about it right now to me. I feel sad about bands.
Do you?
I do.
Yeah. I
don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I haven't had a Dead Zones type experience in a while, where I've seen a band like I keep bringing it up, but it's because I love them. Invasive's the guy that I interviewed yesterday, or on episode 1, I mean, his band, like, they fucking blew my mind. There was only like 8 people in the crowd, but it was like a life-changing show. It gave me this inspiration. I wanted to go and play live. But yeah, I just haven't had it in a while. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should go see the Dead Zones.
So do you have like an ideal, if you could pick a band to record right now? I know it's kind of a sort of an obvious dumb question, but I'm sort of curious because I didn't know you were like a Queens dude.
Yeah, totally. I dig
that. I feel a brotherhood with people who listen to Queens.
Yeah.
It's like as soon as someone says they like Queens, you're like, oh, okay, I think I understand your taste a little. So who's playing right now that you would love to record?
Who is? Yeah. I saw a band a couple weeks ago called Hello Sun, and they were super rad. They were there's a girl, her name is Jade. She was the lead singer and guitar player, and then there's another girl on bass, and then a dude on drums and a dude on lead guitar, and they were super good. They were so cool. They were at the Fox Theater, and killer rock and roll, like just like good, tasteful, sweet riffs,
hooks and riffs.
Yeah. Hooks.
It's so rare to hear that shit.
No,
now.
Honestly, like so I went up and like introduced myself after, because I was like, man, like because I had heard about them online a bit, And I was just like looking for a show to go to, and then I checked them out and like, oh, they sound pretty cool. So I went to see them and they blew me away. And so I introduced myself to them and was like, if you ever want to do something, like I'd love to do it. So they said they're wrapping some personal stuff up, like either work or school or something. And then they might get in touch. But those guys, I would love to do something.
That sounds achievable.
Very cool.
So you're a hustler.
I've been hustling.
Anyone ever describe you as a hustler?
Just myself.
Yeah, and me.
And you. No, but I think like this is on topic about the music community thing, is that like I am a big believer in that. Like the Dead Zones are a great example of that. That was a total that was last summer actually. I saw them with Adam at the Fox, and I was just looking for something to do. Saw that a friend of mine liked their page on Facebook, and I was like, oh, these guys seem cool. And I went to their show, and it was just fucking rock and roll. And I was just like, yes, like there's not enough of this
and you
around.
Just like introduced yourself.
Yeah. So I went up, introduced myself. I think it's like any sales job where like you don't expect to hear back from them. And it's kind of like the metaphorical having your door shut in your face or whatever. And not that they were like that or any band's been like that, but you just don't expect to hear from them.
Right.
And then it wasn't for like 6 months after that they like emailed me and they're like, we want to do something with you. And so we did one song together, and then it was pretty sweet. And then they went and they did an EP with Felix Fung. Have you heard of Felix Fung? He does like Little Red Sounds. It's like his studio. I think they just moved to New West or something. And then we just started back again this summer. So yeah, I think doing stuff like that is important. It's important to shake hands and put a face to the name, and it's just not enough to send emails or make a Craigslist ad.
And some people are afraid to even do that. I think like a lot of the hustling gets lost on just like sending an email, just making a first step. I find for me, like, and I don't consider myself a hustler nearly on the level of you and Andy, but something I've been doing is sort of like booking myself for things, like scheduling things that I may or may not be ready for, just so that I make that first step and I have to send an email. I have to show up.
Yeah. That's totally, I do that too. Like I have my business teacher in school is like, who I like adore and respect a lot. He was like huge on, and this sounds like silly, but just like writing things down. And I also use my phone calendar, but I also now have like a day planner just because like
physical.
Yeah. It's back to like the physical tactile thing. I just think like, and maybe it's just who I am, but it's just like helps me remember. And I just feel more motivated to do it if I write things down or goals or whatever, and then like physically cross it out. It sounds like so menial, but I think it does have like something to it, right?
There's something kind of funny about that, because every time I write some goal down or plan out, like when I first moved to Vancouver, I literally drew a map of like the places I could live, and just like from Kelowna, and then branched out. And now when I look back on those old notebooks like 6 years ago or whatever, that's like everything that I wrote happened exactly that way. It's so bizarre.
That's crazy.
Because I remember I wasn't really thinking all that much about it, just kind of doing it. And for me, like day to day, I have my Google Calendar gives me an alarm for like everything that I need to do, because I have a shit memory.
Yeah.
But I think you might be right about writing things down. I don't know what it is. There's some sort of ritual to it.
Yeah, totally.
Bringing your thought onto it like a physical object.
Totally.
So how did you guys get a beer sponsorship? What are the steps to doing something like that? Because I like
harassment.
Yeah,
a lot of harassment. It was like when we were building the studio, and I have to give credit to Adam Charles Wilson.
Yeah, we got to do a little shout out to Adam Wilson.
Yeah, he introduced us, Andy and I, to Sneaky Weasel beer.
I had one the other day. Very good.
Yeah,
I liked it a lot.
Good.
Not even joking.
We're not getting paid to say that.
Not at all. Hopefully, I will.
But yeah, so we started drinking that when we were building the studio, and then we kind of like fell in love with it. We're like, oh, it's awesome, and like we love the marketing and,
right.
and
it
everything
suits
about
the place in a weird way.
I know, yeah, totally. But And so we knew that there's another awesome studio in town, Blue Light, and Andy's done a lot of work out of there, and they had a Caribou sponsorship, and like I don't like Caribou.
Who does?
Yeah, it's
Sorry, the Wild.
yeah.
Love you guys. Hate that beer.
Yeah, it's bad. I was like, man, it'd be so cool to have like a beer sponsorship. Like, yes, it'd be awesome to have beer, but also like just the principle about it. I just thought it was like
legitimizes
badass.
something.
It's like you can't have a business license until you have a beer sponsorship.
Yeah.
So I literally like, I guess borderline harassed these guys for 6 months, like rating their social media, their emails, trying to call them, and they're not easy to find. So and then about a month ago, I finally, like literally after 6 months, I get an email from the dude who handles them, and he's like, I think this would be a great idea. I think he really wanted to be like, shut the fuck up and just take a bunch of beer and leave us alone. But yeah, and so then he was very gracious and gave us a bunch of beer and said, let's keep this going. And so then in return, we promote them on social media, and it's like we do monthly shows at the studio. And so now we're starting to do like, it's $10 at the door, and then everyone gets a free beer or whatever, right? So it's good to...
That's a lot of people trying beer that like I never would have heard of it if it weren't for you guys. So I guess it actually works for them.
Exactly.
That's sponsorships. They seem so one-sided, but I suppose that's how businesses get big, is just being everywhere.
Totally. Like we've introduced a lot of people to it, and whether they like it or not, at least they've heard about it, right? So you're a producer, right? Or you're both. You're an engineer producer. I guess so.
What exactly is a producer to you?
I'll tell you what an engineer is.
Yeah.
I think an engineer's job is to get the best sounds that they can out of the source, which is a band or a guitar or whatever.
Okay.
Like that's an engineer's job. And there are people out there that are just engineers, which is awesome.
Steve Albini considers himself just an engineer.
Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't put the word producer in anywhere.
Yeah, totally. And I respect that. But I think a producer has say in an artistic direction, whether or not the band wants them for that or not. And you know what? I thought, like, from starting out in this, I thought a lot of people would be very I guess more egotistical towards their music. And I totally understand, not egotistical, but like attached. And I totally understand that, because you're taking, this, your heart and soul or whatever, and then presenting it to somebody, and then they might have an idea to change it. And people, I feel like I was always scared of like giving input or whatever, because I'm like, if this was me, what I want.
Right.
But you know what? I think 90% of the people I've worked with wants another set of ears on it. So that's what I think a producer is another set of ears who's
theoretically a musician as well.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, right? Is having that. And that's something that I've learned so much about, is that if I was writing music or whatever, I think it's so important to have, because people hear things differently, and it's other people that are going to be hearing the music, not you, right? So, I mean, yes, you are going to, but it's for an audience, right? Or maybe not, but a lot of people want it for an audience.
That's a weird line you have to ride while writing, I find, is like the subconscious thought that this is for other people. Like a lot of writers that I really respect sort of say that they write for themselves.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I believe that, I feel like, yeah, maybe you write stuff that you like, but if you're writing rock music, you're writing it to be played on a stage loudly to human beings.
Yeah.
Like this whole like writing without people in mind, or like not thinking about what people are going to want to hear. I don't know if that's true, man. I feel like whatever's coming out of your heart is coming out of your heart, but it's being augmented by how you're picturing it coming out of amps.
Totally.
Are you a songwriter? Like,
yeah,
do you write?
Sure. Yeah, I do.
Do you write in Echo, Nebraska, or just your own stuff?
No, I do my own stuff. I have a lot of songs I fantasize about one day having enough time to do my own.
And are you
EP.
like primarily a piano guy?
No, I'd say I'm like a guitar guy. Yeah.
What kind of guitar do you play?
I play I guess like my old faithful is like an Ibanez SA220 FM, I think it's called.
What is with that shit?
I don't
Was
know.
it made in Korea or something?
I know.
I feel like Koreans
why?
always name guitars that shit.
Why can't they just call it like? Why does it have to be a number? Why can't the model just be like?
My guitar's like that too.
Tiger.
NH400. Yeah, call it something like Fender knows what's up.
Yeah.
Their guitars,
It's
you
a
recognize
Telecaster.
it.
Yeah.
It's like I picture a Jaguar when I hear the word.
Yeah. Yeah, that is my Old Faithful. But you know what's interesting about writing music is that like I will, like if I'm writing something on piano, it could be something that like I would never write on guitar, like a chord progression or whatever, just because like visually it's different. And on guitar, I don't know if you're the same, but like a lot of times I'll use, or you might get caught up in using the same progressions or whatever.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. And so if you go to a different instrument, it changes the visual aspect is important. And so it's just like the way you're playing or your fingers move or whatever, like you'll come up with things on a different instrument that you never would.
Absolutely. It's like Dave Grohl, the drummer front man, kind of like the way he describes writing is using the guitar like a drum kit.
Yeah.
I love that.
And you know what? That's the same with actually our friend Spencer Daly.
Another shout out.
Mad
Good bass player.
Yes.
Anyone who needs a session. Does he do session work? I wonder. He should if he doesn't.
He should, yeah.
He can sit down and lay down tracks that sound like he'd been working on them for a decade.
He is. And he's so like wise, I feel like. Okay, so this is his wisdom that he gave to me, is that like one day we were listening to the Dead Weather. You know the Dead
My
Weather?
least favorite Jack White project.
There you go. And
love Jack White.
And he said that and this is something that's like always stuck with me, is that he said Jack White plays the drums like he plays the guitar, which is like so interesting, right? And same with your Dave Grohl thing is that like you can hear Jack White in the drums, but we've grown up on him, knowing him on guitar.
I didn't know he drummed in the Dead Weather.
Yeah, he's the drummer. And so it's interesting listening to that. And then when he said that, I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like his personality comes out.
And I feel like he like almost abuses instruments that he plays. Like he manhandles whatever it is, and you can hear that. Have you heard that new Jack White song, Battle Cry?
No.
Good Lord. It might be the greatest piece of music.
Really? It sounds pretty epic.
It's insane. Like, it came out with no advertisement at all, in the middle of like a lot of my favorite bands putting out my least favorite albums they've ever done.
Yeah.
God bless. But Jack White puts out this random like Spotify single, and I put it on, and it's like 2 minutes, and there's no vocals, and there's like this like Aboriginal chant going on, and this just like crazy distorted guitar, and it's just like, this is fucking great. Like it follows no rule at all. So he's a good example of somebody who has not even remotely adapted for anyone.
No.
You know who else does that? I think is Beck.
Oh yeah.
He just does what he does, and people flock to it.
But those two guys also have like a lot of clout. Like they've also been doing that for so long that I feel like sometimes you get to a status, and maybe Queens falls under that too, where they could release anything, and somebody in their audience is gonna like it. Like
I don't know really any bad Beck.
That's true.
Like, I mean, there's songs that are like dumb and like kind of silly and boring or whatever, but it's just like, I don't think he's ever put out anything that wasn't true.
No. And he's like, honestly, if I think of like unique artists, I honestly like Beck is like one of the first things, because he's always doing something different. He's always trying something different, but it's like always Beck. Like, I know it sounds so vague, but like,
I wonder what these people like Beck and Jack White are like. Like, or do they live that sort of are they like Hunter Thompson dudes? Like they live the art? They seem like they must be eccentric.
Well, he's a Scientologist.
Yeah, I guess that answers that question. It's because like,
and I've heard Jack White is could be an a-hole.
Whenever people say that, like, yeah, he's I heard Tyler the Creator's a dick in person and stuff, I'm always kind of like, yeah, it's sort of why I like him a bit.
I know.
Like,
I kind of cringe at just saying that, because I also feel the same.
I probably wouldn't like him, meeting him, like hanging out with him, but that's sort of why I like his shit.
Yeah, I know. So many musicians are quote like known to be dicks or whatever, and we've all seen like Josh
Homie doing
like
dick
cussing
moves.
people out.
That's so
shit.
fun to watch, though.
I know, it is really fun.
So you guys have experience with like grants and loans and shit? That must be something that you've dipped into a lot.
Yes.
Is Andy the grant guy? That's kind of what I've heard before.
Yeah, I mean, he is the grant guy.
The silver tongue?
He is the silver tongue. He can be self-deprecating because he is Jewish by heritage.
Classic.
Yes, he likes to poke fun at himself sometimes for being money wise. But yeah, I mean, even if he wasn't Jewish, he is very good with going after that stuff for sure.
Do you have any idea where to begin? Like, say some kid's listening right now and they want to start a studio or go on a tour. Like, where the hell do you even start when it comes to grants?
I would start by finding a grant writer.
No kidding, eh? That is the trick to it.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part, is coming up with some essay for some asshole
and
about why you deserve the money.
And there's companies out there, and that's what they do full time. Like,
right.
is grant writing. And so I've heard of like other producers and engineers as well, like just helping artists go after grants because then they get the money, right? So it's like working for the money. So they'll help artists.
Then take a cut.
Well, because they get the grant to record, say, for $2,000, and then they're going to spend it on the engineer that helped them get the grant, right? So, but these grant writers know what the adjudicators are looking for. So you just kind of have a firsthand perspective on what they need.
There's a formula, clearly.
Yeah, there's a formula. But the thing that I find really backwards about the whole Canadian... I don't know if it's Factor or Canadian Council or whatever, but I've also heard that like some of the biggest... No, I don't think I've heard. I think it's like it's written... is that some of the biggest bands still get the biggest grants.
Right.
Like,
I heard that about the Trues. Apparently they make shit tons of money off
and
of
Metric.
Factor.
Like Metric apparently gets the highest amount of grant money every year. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like,
kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah, I think that's very backwards. Like, why does this band that's been around for 20 years and established and have a good, healthy career, why are they getting this money to help? That I think should be helping bands get launched.
Maybe it's because like bands like Metric, even though they're gigantic, they're actually not making that much money anymore.
That's possible
as an entity,
too.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and they expect to be. Like, I heard like labels now will actually take merch money.
Yeah, the 360 deal. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's like, yeah, it's like they'll sign artists to what's called a 360 deal, and they get, they're butt fucking you 360 degrees. So like they get a cut of everything.
So I've started this stupid Hosewater Records thing as basically just like my version of what I wish a label was, which is
360 deals.
I'm gonna fuck as many artists as I can. I'm gonna take their
That's what I'm talking about.
I just want to like have a place where the music that my friends put their half of their lives and their bank accounts into has like somewhere to sit, at least around other music. So I just basically want a website with local music on it.
I think that's fantastic.
And I think that's really all a label could be right now. Like all they could be is a distributor.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're just a bank loan.
Yes. That
ends up fucking you. We almost signed, not to a label, but to like this agent guy back in like 2012 or 2013. And I just like... the meeting with him was weird. It was so sneaky, and we ended up like getting a lawyer to read the contract, and we were only like 18 years old, so we had stars in our eyes. And he was talking about, I just had lunch with Elton John. I think he said he went golfing with Elton John or some bullshit. But if we would have signed that contract, we would still to this day be paying him for like every Spotify play. Like the way he had written up this contract was something in perpetuity, before tax, blah, 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 where basically he made everything we would have ever made.
You were his bitch.
Yeah, so thank God we got it read over.
It's sad that those, like, cliches still exist. Like, you know how you always hear about, like, the music industry scumbag who's, like... And it's just like, I can't believe that stuff still... I mean, thank God for entertainment lawyers, I guess.
And then it's like, what are you really even getting out of it now? I don't know if it's worth it. Like, I wonder... Like we were talking about earlier, how people say the internet makes it easier now. I don't think that's necessarily true, because in order for the internet to make it easier for you, your band, to get somewhere, you also need to be like a fucking programmer. You need to be like a social media expert, and you need to know statistics and shit and algorithms, like to get people to even see your YouTube video. Whereas, like, I guess the only point of a label now is that they have people checking their site.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can do that. You can record for cheap if you make it happen. Fuck, you can record in Chicago for cheap with Albini if he likes your shit. That's something I never would have done myself, which the producer of the demo that we did before that album did for me, which was just send it. He just sent it to Albini, and Albini liked it and asked us to come there, and then we just sort of like saved up money, and it was a lot of money, but it was doable.
Yeah.
This stuff is possible, and I feel like bands are still getting fucked by these labels and managers.
Yeah.
And they're like a dead breed.
Like, why?
It's pointless now.
Yeah. I think it is. Especially, I know we're kind of like shit talking the grants or whatever, but they do a lot of good as well. Like, especially if you get on board with that, like, what is a label going to offer you besides like coverage and distribution and promotion, I guess.
Which is huge, I guess,
yeah,
right? Promotion is kind of everything.
Yeah.
It is figure-outable.
Yeah.
You can learn how to do that online, but it's just exhausting on top of everything else you're already doing.
Yeah.
I think the trick to being like a powerhouse band right now is just having band members where each of them has like a specialty.
Well, I think everybody needs an Andy Schichter because
Yes.
that's his...
And a Spencer.
And a Spencer for Wisdom.
Wise guy, Jew dude.
Yeah.
Andy's a clever dude, and he's
Andy's an amazing person, and I think...
I feel like clever and Jews sounds kind of demeaning. I didn't mean to do that. Something sounds gross about
it's
that.
different because Andy is very humorous, and it's not...
Still not cool for me to say.
Yeah, but he is like, you know, I always think of him like if every band needs somebody like him, and he's such like a go-getter, promoter, whiz. I guess it starts from like the determination kind of side though. Like he taught himself all that stuff, right? Which I totally respect. Like,
did he go to school for?
He went to school for audio engineering. Yeah,
but you said you had a business teacher.
Yeah, like we had a business course in our audio
in music
engineering.
school.
Yeah,
that's kind of awesome. Is that normal?
I don't think so.
That's like a pretty sweet thing to go through.
Yeah,
did you come out of it with a lot of?
Yeah, it taught us a lot about royalties and and about like the state of the music industry now, and like how, you know, it can be depressing, you know, nobody's making money and blah, blah, but or how to look at it optimistically. Like, this is, you know, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna sit here and bitch about it like we're doing, or are you gonna adapt to it and flow with it? Because there's guys like you know, I think I heard Garth Richardson, you know, Garth, right? He was saying he said at some presentation he was giving that, you know, he was like, oh, back in the 90s, you know, when I made the Rage Against the Machine record, you know, I was making 90 grand off that record, and now I'm lucky if I make 9,000 off record. I'm like, dude, that's just the way it is. Like, you know, I'm sorry that you're not making $100,000 off a Rage record, but like, that is just the state of the world that it's in. So I don't know, that was the heyday, if you want to say it. But I mean, I think you just have to be clever now and think outside the box in terms of, because people are still making money.
People are still making money.
Yeah.
Some people, I think it's very unbalanced now, whereas it used to be kind of like everyone gets in on it a little bit. And right now, like, I don't even think roadies exist anymore. Because who the fuck would do that?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't be making any money. You wouldn't even get like your own van.
I know. It's like if artists are getting fucked this hard, then what are roadies making?
So, but I don't know about you, but I feel like somewhere in this like Spotify, iTunes landscape, there is room for the money to be distributed better.
Yes.
I feel like there is like hope.
But do you know what like the number is that like artists make? Isn't it like a fraction of a cent?
I think it's like 0.0005 or some crazy thing.
Yeah.
I know that like I have a bunch of music on Spotify and iTunes, and I use TuneCore.
Yeah.
Just pay once, and they kind of, or pay once a year, and they just distribute it all for you. And I was looking through my like statistics and earnings the other day, and it's like pretty sad.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad because like when our record came out in like 2012 or whatever it was, there was a good week where it was paying itself off for the year.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't even do that.
Yeah.
Because like in opening week, it would be like $30 today, $2 the next day, $60, $10, and it was like it was actually like decent money coming in on that day.
Yeah.
But then it goes down to cents and then nothing for weeks and then cents. And then it's a huge bummer to have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to make a record and then $60 a year so that anyone can listen to it.
Yeah.
It's a fucking bummer, man.
Yeah, it is a bummer.
It's like, I almost wish that it's just like Spotify would just listen to the album and take it under their wing. Like, why do I have to pay you to put it on? It makes sense. It's their company. They have to make money. But there's got to be a better way for bands to not have to get fucked so hard just trying to get people to hear them.
Yes. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What's going on with Hippie Satan?
I'm going in a week. I'm going to Kelowna to record the second one.
Second song?
So Hippie Satan was like basically just me and Andrew Reed, drummer.
Yeah.
Just went into a studio my friend has and improvised a bunch of shit. It was like sometimes I like to give myself like stupid little weird projects just to see what'll come out of it, kind of like what we're doing right now. Where it's like I don't expect anyone to hear it or care about it or to make money, but I just want to see what would come out of it. It's almost like an experiment to see what I do best.
Yeah.
And Hippie Satan ended up sounding really cool.
So cool.
It's weirdly like it has a vibe to it, and it was just
oh my God.
Everything's improvised. Like the lyrics even just went in and stood there and made shit up. And it had this like freedom, but like this restricted freedom vibe to it. I think Jack White is kind of one of those dudes where it's like
you lock yourself in a room
and like if the song I write today doesn't get finished today, then it's gone forever kind of thing. That's sort of like I like that like guerrilla art shit.
Yeah.
So in a week we're gonna go do it again, and I have a new drummer. So what I decided is I'm going to have a revolving door of drummers. And I just play a baritone guitar with 3 distortion pedals all clicked on.
Sweet.
And I'm just going to have a new drummer every time. Byron from episode 1 mentioned that he was interested in doing it too. So it'll be like my desert sessions, I think.
Yes. I love that idea.
Just make a bunch of horrible, weird, all kind of like pseudo-satanic. Like the only really idea behind it is it has to be improvised. And it has to be a little bit like satanic sounding, even though I have no interest in that at all. Aesthetically, I think it's fun to give yourself that weird boundary to work with.
Yeah.
And like the drummer who's going to be doing the next one, he was one of the original Flu drummers, and my band, the Flu. He was asking me like, yeah, well, I'll get to work on some stuff. Maybe you can send me a riff. And I was like, no, we're not. We'll show up.
Yeah.
And we'll just whatever comes out. Like, and there's no pressure at all because it's free and no one's probably going to hear it anyway other than my friends. So that's the philosophy behind Hippie Satan, is that no one's going to hear it and it doesn't matter. And it kind of comes out cool.
Man, if you ever wanted to start like a Hippie Satan band, it would be so cool.
I do. I want to amass a bunch of weird shit. And I was thinking after the third drummer, I'm going to move on and work with someone who does like electronic drumming.
Yes.
And work with some sort of beat thing.
Yes.
And then just kind of keep mixing it up, but always have that baritone.
That's a great idea.
Thing. Yeah, it's like exciting to me.
Yeah.
Because playing in the fucking Flu became really exhausting. And I hope it continues someday. Picks up where we left off, because we did a lot in our short time, but it's just like, I don't know, it's after a while you get sick of the smell of yourself. It's just like constantly hawking your own shit that like after a while you're like, do I even believe in this anymore? It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Whereas these little projects they keep things interesting and they're fun. Mm-hmm. Do you ever get, so sometimes when I wake up in the morning and I like see my tattoos, I have this like weird, like almost like seeing them for the first time split moment of, what the fuck is that on my arm kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that when you wake up and you remember that you have a studio in North Vancouver? Where it's like, it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, no, like I'm kind of over it now, but there was like many days when we were building it and I was like, what the fuck did I get myself into? Yeah. Especially like, dude, it was hard. Like, I think the last few months, actually, Andy would agree with me on this, but like right before we put the paint up, there was like a couple weeks where I won't speak for him, but I was just like, yeah, I was like, what have I got myself into? Like, is this ever going to end? Because, man, like 7 months is a long time.
That's how long you guys were building it? Jeez, 7 months.
It was a long
That
time, dude.
brutal.
And it was just like one of those things, I think, I don't have any experience like renovating a house or anything, but people have.
Thank God for Adam.
Yes, thank God for Adam. But people would say things like, you know, if you're doing a renovation, then you cut into a wall and there's like a bunch more, right? You open up 5 more issues, right? And that's what it was like. It's just like we would start something.
Especially with sound, like it has to be so specific.
Exactly. So it was very daunting, but I wouldn't change anything for the world, right?
Well,
like,
now, because I like to hang out at your studio any chance I can, when I sit down on that couch and you guys have the same neon lights that I have in my little shitty studio, and your speakers with the little hats on them, and the board and the window, it's just like, is there any, like, I think that's what life is for, to complete something like that and be able to sit in it.
Yes.
It's like the ultimate version of like satisfaction, and I'm just feeling it like vicariously, I think.
No, yeah, there was one night, when I was sitting there, I think I was like having a beer with Adam or something. It was like within the last month of construction, and he was just like, he turned to me and he was just like, this is a cool space. And I was like, yeah, it is a cool space, you know, having this place that's not anybody's home to go to, you know, and that makes a big difference, because that's why Andy and I originally built this thing is to get out of working from home, because I believe it's really important to have like a divide between home and work. And when you go to this place, you work harder than you would at home, because there's distractions and whatever. So, and then like I said about doing these monthly shows, like we just want a focus for me, Andy and I, is like to create a community, right?
I think you already are, and just being in there, it feels like when it was first sort of like lock on the door finished. You guys were on tour, I believe.
Yeah.
Like you hadn't done anything in it yet, and Adam and I were just like hanging out in there for a night or two, and we just like messed around on his laptop, recording in the room, and there was freaking ghosts, man. Like you could feel something in the walls, and maybe that's just me like being excited for. How old are you? Can I ask that?
Yeah, I'm 25.
So I want anyone that someday hears this who has any interest in like building an empire, you can fucking start it at 25 and create something like that. It's inspiring, man. Just being in that room and knowing that the two of you figured it out, like just like signing a lease would be overwhelming.
Yeah, that was it's scary. It was scary because we added up like how much it was over the course of 3 years, because we pay the rent monthly, right? But I think we sat there and looked at the contract and we saw how much it was like in total, and we were like, holy shit, like this is a huge investment, I guess. I don't even know if you can call it that, but it took it was a little daunting. It'd
be frightening. I think like looking at something about looking at like 3-year timelines just turns me turn around from it. I can't handle it.
It's a huge commitment.
It's
right?
like I almost have to just take it one step at a time in order to even come close.
Yeah, because people are like, I've been asked a couple times where people are like, what do you think you'll be doing like a year or two from now? I'll be like, well, I'll be here because I have a 3-year lease.
I think that's why me and my roommate were talking about this last night. I think that's why some people fear commitment in a relationship, is because the moment you're committed, it's like time starts almost fast forwarding, and you can see where you're gonna be in 5 years, and that's frightening.
Yeah,
because you start to like time is becoming very real, and you have to manage it, and you're like, oh, that means death is coming. Yeah, like it's a frightening thing.
Yeah,
but hey, man, that's like, is there any better reason to fucking live and die than to have a room that's yours? I mean, you could sleep there if you had to. It's something so beautiful about it. And it's cozy, and it's got personality, and it's professional. How professional are you? Are you like, are you guys have business cards?
We have business. We're that.
Do you do shit like that so that you just kind of fake it till you make it, or are you doing this like methodically? Like you have a plan, a business plan.
Like literally the business cards, or like
Everything. You've got the sponsorship, the cards, the room. It's like, at what point, like, is school responsible for you having this professional environment? Because it is. When I walk in there, it feels like a 40-year-old must run this because it's a grown-up environment.
Yeah. I know this sounds really cliche, but it was just like it just seemed like the logical thing to do. And I wasn't thinking like it's the professional thing to do, or I just felt like the next step.
Right.
It just felt like the next step.
Were you Googling, like, what should we have in the engineering room? Like, how much of it was manufactured? Or were you just kind of like, oh, I guess we should probably have cards here so people can...
Yeah.
You guys have a guest book.
Okay, that I have to say is my dad's idea.
That's legit as shit, though. Like, when I saw that, I was like, this fucking guy's like, you guys are like 10 years ahead of anything I could come up with.
Well, yeah, or 40 years ahead because it was my dad's idea.
Enough.
But, like, no, I like, love him for that shit. He was just like, you guys should have and I'm lucky because both my parents are, like, super supportive.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, and my dad was like, just randomly, he was like, here, you should I bought this for you. You should have a guest book. And I was just like, and honestly, neither Andy and I would have like ever thought of that. Like,
right.
What the fuck? At first I was like, a guest book? And then like people like writing in it. And I was like, yeah, this is a great idea. And then Andy was like, this was a really great idea.
It's one of those things where, like you mentioned before, putting the idea onto paper, it legitimizes something. And when you see those memories, it's like already they're going into the history book, and
totally
it's being created right before you. It's kind of awesome.
Totally.
And that you guys did it from the very start, because that thing will fill up eventually.
Yeah.
I have a couple of passages in there.
Yeah, you do.
They're quite silly. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely inspiring, because it just seems like such a daunting, huge undertaking. But your parents do they worry? Like, are they stoked?
They don't. If they are, they don't tell me.
Are
they're stoked. No, they're both like. I'm like very fortunate to have the parents that I have, because both of them, and they are separated, so they don't have, I think, any communication. But both of them are extremely supportive, like more than anybody could ask for. So like from day one, like even from, being 18 and being in a rock band or whatever, like just they were never like, oh, you shouldn't do this, or maybe you should think of something else, or blah blah blah. Like they were always just like, just go for it, like just do it. And and same with the studio, because I didn't know, I think both Andy and I were, like any person would be like signing a 3-year lease on a place or building a studio. We'd be like, are we going to regret this later? And like my philosophy, I think, with anything I do is like, in 10 years from now, my biggest phobia is like in 10 years or 20 years from now is regretting not doing something. So I'm like, could I live with myself? Like if I didn't do this, if I didn't play in this band, if I didn't start the studio, if I didn't play this show, like probably not. Like I just have to do it, because like I don't know, another cliche, but just like life is short, and it's too short to not do the things that you maybe should or shouldn't do. Like just do it. And
I really do believe, I love that. And I really do believe that if something sucks, you just delete it and do the next thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's you can't.
But you can't be there wondering what would have happened.
Yeah. And you can't recover some deleted thing that you never made in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So are you superstitious?
Yeah. I don't like to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I feel like I asked that to a lot of artist type people, just friends of mine or whatever, because I don't know. It seems to play a huge role for me in, I don't know, in like success or on the road to success. There's all these weird things that I do, these like idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself doing that stuff?
Actually, what I was going to talk to you about before we started talking here was that we needed a couple more sound baffles for the studio. This happened just like 3 weeks ago. And I was on Craigslist, of course, and I found these guys, somebody was getting rid of these like really nice sound baffles that were on casters. Like they're really nice, big, huge sound baffles. And so I emailed them, show up And they're like, yeah, come by. Their house was in Coquitlam. I show up there, and this like beautiful woman opens the door. I'm like, what is she doing? You know, I didn't mean to be judgmental, but I was like, what is she doing with the sound equipment, right? And then she's like, oh, you have to meet my husband, blah, blah, blah. And he comes out, and he is Ryan Worsley, who is like a big-time Juno Award-winning producer. And so he does like awesome music that I like. Like he does, like he did all of Dear Rouge's stuff, and there's this cool new rock band called Modern Space, and totally rad guy. So I was wearing a shirt of my band's, and at this time we were looking for a producer because we got this grant, and yeah. So anyway, long story short, he just invited me to his home and showed me his new mixes, and we shot the shit and took a genuine interest in what I was doing and who I am and blah blah blah. And going back to Superstition, I was just like, what are the chances of me replying to this ad on Craigslist, showing up on this famous, for lack of a better term, producer's door, who I like totally respect his work a lot. You know, it's just like stuff like that.
A little synchronicity.
Yeah.
Maybe a combination of fate and your, like, how hard you push to find these things.
Right.
Like, you're not going to run into these fateful moments unless you really...
That's
are
true.
on Craigslist every night, so to speak, or whatever it is you're interested in.
That's true.
So, and like, I don't know about you, but it tends to kind of dictate my choices in a lot of ways. Do you find that?
Give me an example.
Well, for me, it got to the point where it would be like the shirt I was wearing in the morning would have to, I think it was like getting to be some OCD shit. I became obsessed with flipping coins last year, where I would, like, every decision I would make, I'd flip a coin. And oftentimes when you flip a coin, before it even lands, you already know what you don't want it to be. So it kind of makes a decision for you. But I got really weird about it. And it started to become like I was dreaming about flipping coins, and I was just like, every little decision. So
and would you always follow it, though?
No.
Yeah. But you would just do it.
I would do it.
Yeah.
And it was weird, and it was a gross kind of superstition thing. Because I always find that, like, whenever you listen to some, I think this is because when I was a kid and I would watch interviews with bands, every fucking band that I ever loved that made it would be like, yeah, we would just play music in our garage. We never expected it to go anywhere, and here we are now. And I'd be like, okay, I have to think that way. Like, don't expect it to go anywhere. Who cares? And like,
yeah, totally.
Even saying this out loud is so funny because I never verbalize shit like this because it's so bizarre and like meta. But it's real, and it became a part of my psyche where it's like, hey, you can't think of it that way because you won't get successful.
Yeah.
Is there any merit to that, or is it a goddamn waste of time?
I don't know, because like that's so funny that you bring that up, because like that resonates with me. I would also hear that too, or it's just like, or like, you know, Queens, right? They're like, we're just making music that we like, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, but now millions of people like it. Like,
do you believe them even?
I know. And then I want to, but I'm like, is that true?
Like, did none of you guys ever even think that maybe you might want to make money off of it? That seems like bullshit to me.
I know, it does.
Like, of course, dude. The fucking Led Zeppelin existed, so clearly you could. Like, you could make money too. It can't be so far-fetched.
Yeah.
Because, like, when I was little, like, I was obsessed, like, with attention. Like, I think I still am. Like, I wanted to be, for lack of a better term, famous.
Totally.
Like you said. I don't know. I would have never said that out loud because I thought in my head that if you say that, it cancels it. And maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't think I want to be famous.
But I've heard, I don't know. I don't think I've heard any musician say that, but I've heard some actors say that. They're like, that's what drove them is whether they said the word famous or whatever, they wanted to be big or successful, whatever that meant. And that drove them to becoming that way.
And fame really, like for a musician, is just listens. It's people hearing the shit you're making. And I think if any musician says that they don't want that, they got to be lying. Yeah. Except maybe Bjork or somebody who's like totally weird.
But yeah, I mean, you have to be conscious of the fact that like fame or whatever is going to come with things you don't like. Like, I always find it weird when people complain about people coming up to them in the street and asking them for an autograph. Because I'm always like, or when people complain about touring or whatever, which like I have done it and I know it's hard. Like I have no I don't disagree in any way that it's work and that it's difficult, but I always thought it was weird that people would complain about that. Like, I had a friend who I won't name, and he was in a big band, and he told me this story about how he was setting up at some arena show, and this dude came up to him and asked him to sign something, and then this friend, this nameless friend, was like, said something like, "Can't you see I'm trying to do my job or something?" And I'm like,
that is your job.
I know that like turned me off so much, because I was like, dude, like, you wouldn't be here being fed and being able to have a roof over your head if it wasn't for this guy asking for 10 seconds of your time. Like, I've never like gotten that. I've never understood that. Like, how can you say that to the people who are putting food on your table?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a pretty nice thing to have to complain about.
I know. Without them, you would be working some job that you don't want to be doing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're your bread and butter. So I don't know. But I'm not in their shoes. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if I could see myself treating people like that if I had that opportunity.
I think for me, the trick is that's working. I feel like every year I kind of change my mindset about work and how I go about music. And I think right now the thing that's working is not picturing the big final end game.
Yeah.
Playing the stadium to the people. For me, what's getting me moving and like making me create is booking you today. Even though I didn't sleep last night, I have to do the interview because it's today, and here I am doing it, and I'll finish it and I'll edit it probably after a bottle of wine. Like, fuck, if I don't do it, I'm gonna feel like a bag of shit tomorrow because I said I would do it, so I finish it. And I think I'm getting more done like this. Whereas like growing up, this idea that I wanted to be the next Kurt Cobain, I think it was kind of hampering my go-gettedness.
So you're talking about like be more conscious and like just looking one step ahead, or like always have your eyes set on like the step forward instead
Taking
of
it
like
slow, like just looking at what you need to do next to get a beer sponsorship. It's not like I maybe am projecting onto you. It's not becoming a professional. It's, well, we need a business card because we need to hand it out. Well, we should get a sponsorship because we got a fridge with no beer in it, kind of thing. It's like it's easy to look at these things from the outside and think like, wow, I could never do that. There's so much that goes into that. But from what I'm hearing from you, it seems like you just gotta do the one thing and then the next one thing, and it all adds into this.
Yeah.
Situation that you guys have created and that I think people can do.
That was kind of my going back to my parents, that was like my father's mantra, was just like, just focus on the next step, like just focus on the next stepping stone or the next whatever. It's just like when I was playing in that rock band, I was just like working a shitty job at a liquor store, but it was just
I did that too.
Yeah, he was just always like, it's just a stepping stone until the next hopefully better thing, right? So
thank God for cool dads.
And liquor stores.
Yeah. We got a similar upbringing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, kind of wrapping it up here. I got one final question for you.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
You do?
I do believe in ghosts.
What makes you believe in them?
Just hearing some unexplainable things, seeing things. When I lived in Kelowna with my mother, after my parents split, we lived in an old character house. It was probably over 100 years old, like downtownish.
Okay.
And I think she's also like quite spiritual and stuff, but also like very level-headed. Like she's not, a nut job or anything. But she would also hear some things like she would go out for weekends with her partner or whatever, and I would be there alone, and I would like hear weird things in the house. That wasn't like the house settling or what people would say. Like, I don't know if it was people talking, but I just felt like something was there. Ooh. And she experienced the same thing. And then when I moved to Vancouver, I moved into a similar style house, like an old Victorian, 100-year-old house, and similar stuff. But I don't know if it's a placebo thing. Like, I don't know if it's because I've thought of this or believed in it before that then my brain's going to be prone and want to hear these things. But I do. I don't know. I guess I also like to think that when you die, it's not the end. I don't believe in God necessarily, but
Whoa.
Yeah, sorry, putting that out there. But
that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah,
right there.
but I also
that's good or bad.
I also don't think that
God is dead.
I also don't think that it's the end.
So you just wander around recording studios and character
Creeping
homes
people
after you
out.
die for an eternity.
Well, wait. What about you? Before we end, what about about you?
I'll believe anything that makes me get the heebie-jeebies and feel cool and maybe inspire something. I don't care about like whether or not it's real.
Yeah,
It's real enough for me that something like hippie Satan can be created out of just that belief alone. So I think there's some like use, there's some functionality in believing in stupid ghosts and you know, what's the word we were just talking about with the coin? It's not coming
like
to me.
superstition.
Sorry, I literally didn't sleep. I think there's some value in believing in superstition and ghosts and stuff.
I think like you said, like whatever does it for you, right?
And also, come on, there's some shit. I've heard some shit and seen some shit. I think there's something going on. I don't know if it's ghosts.
I don't believe in God, but I certainly believe in hippie Satan.
Fucking rights.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Thanks for listening to the one person who's listening. This is Dan Ponich of Park Sound Studio. Thanks for being in my episode 2.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely.
The fucking Hosecast.
Fucking hosers.
No, wait.